Uh, hey Poornima, thanks a ton for joining us today and taking time off on a Monday to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiva. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, that's really nice. I think I really appreciate Sudeep for connecting us as well. So how's it going?
Mhm.
How's the lockdown been treating you?
It's been, of course, I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs, but professionally, I think it's been great. I've learned a lot. I've, acquired or relearned and learned a whole bunch of new skills
That's
for
nice.
myself, which has been really enriching. Yeah.
That's really nice. So I think before we start off and dive into the interview, I'd like to take a minute to
Mhm.
give our listeners a quick overview of what the webinar is all about, and then we can get to the interview part. Is that okay with you?
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Awesome. So, guys, just a minute to give you a background about how this webinar came about. So, a few years ago, when I got into product marketing, there were hardly any resources out there on what the role was about, how to become a product marketer, and once you're in, how to be successful. And we're in 2020, but the path to getting into product marketing is still very hazy. To make sense of all of this, my friend Sudeep and I will speak to successful product marketers like Poornima here to understand how they started off and what it took them to reach the top, right? Sudeep isn't in this webinar, but he'll be joining us soon. And these interviews will be packed with experiential learnings, frameworks, and success and failure stories as well. So if you're someone who's curious about product marketing, eager to pursue a career in this role, or just interested in how it can add value to your organization, this is the webinar series for you. That's about it. So, Poornima, we can start off with your interview now. So, to give our listeners a little bit of context, can you tell us a little more about yourself and your new venture, product marketing for tech?
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Poornima Mohandas. I'm a product marketing consultant. I run product marketing for tech.com. Just to give you a background about myself, I started off as a business journalist. I took to marketing. I started off in content marketing and then kind of moved into product marketing. Um, I have about 14 years of experience. I have launched and managed multi-million dollar enterprise SaaS products with brands like SAP Caldas Cloud. This was in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as more nascent products in the Indian startup ecosystem. So people have often asked me how I made that transition from business journalism to product marketing, and I always say it's all about telling a good story.
That's really nice.
And
I think as I told you earlier, right? I never thought I'll interact with somebody who's who's jumped from journalism into product marketing, and you're the second
yeah,
guest, and
yeah.
you're the second guest on the
I
webinar
know,
who's
what a
completely
coincidence,
transitioned.
right?
Yeah,
What a coincidence.
it is.
So since this is a webinar for, aspiring product marketers and folks who want to brush up their skills, I have to plug my blog. Productmarketingfortech.com is also a product marketing blog. It's full of practical insights and learnings from my perspective. And it's also been, many of my articles have also been published in international publications like the London-based Mind the Product and SF-based Product Marketing Alliance and Product School, etc. So do check it out when you get
Yeah, I
involved.
think I'll link it in the promotional material once this webinar goes out. Uh, so,
Sure.
so going on to the next question, Poornima. Now, product marketing, it's got a wide array of definitions, right? It changes from organization to organization and depending on which industry and the stage the organization is. So, what, according to you, is product marketing? How do you define that?
So it's a great question because a lot of people struggle with what exactly is product marketing, and there seems to be a lot of overlap with product management. And in the Indian context, I've also seen there's a lot of overlap with other functions within marketing. But I like to think about product marketing as it's a function that positions your product and takes it to the marketplace, right? It talks to the marketplace and positions it there. And there are five main buckets under product marketing, if you will. So number one is positioning. This is essentially your positioning and messaging of the product, how every employee in your company talks about the product, and how you talk about it, talk and make it, make its value understood to the customer across all your collateral, across your website, your third-party collateral, everything. So it's all consistent and cohesive. Number two is really sales enablement. So working with inside sales and sales in order to help them close deals faster, right? Number three is really product launches and go-to-market strategy. So it's go-to-market strategy, execution, and getting the awareness in both internally as well as externally. Fourth, I would say, is analyst engagement. So really working with your influencers and analysts to be top of mind with them. And fifth is supporting the larger demand gen team. So whether it's messaging for your upcoming quarters, for your campaigns, whether it's for events, speaking at webinars, events, that kind of thing. So that's how I kind of look at product marketing, five different subsets that you have to kind of be responsible for.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to break up product marketing. And I think that if you draw a spider graph on those five different points, you'll realize that different organizations require different skills from you. So I think some organizations that will probably need a lot of attention on demand gen, while some might need in positioning, and while some might need in sales enablement. So that's a really
Absolutely.
good
It
way to
really
look at it.
depends on, yeah, it really depends on the stage of the company and the maturity of the product that you're operating in, right?
Yeah.
So whether your focus is really on lead gen, or is it more on closing deals? Is it moving from medium size SME space to the enterprise space? So really your focus is going to change depending on all of that.
Got it. And Poornima, going on to the next question, right? Why do you think product marketing is important? When I mean why is it important, it's from an organizational point of view and the importance of the role itself compared to others out there. So where do you see all of that coming in?
Sure. A lot of engineers like to think that if you build a product, they will just come. But to me, that's a bit foolhardy because, today markets are so cluttered and so commoditized that how is your target audience going to know about your shiny new rocket ship, right? So product marketing is what's going to help you do that. They're the ones who are going to craft that message and take it to the different constituents. And when I say constituents, it's not just customers and prospects where your revenue is going to come from, but it's really creating awareness inside sales, resellers and partners, analysts, influencers, all those different key constituents. So
Makes sense.
that's where product marketing really comes in and adds value to your organization.
Got it. And do you see that this is gaining importance, or where do you see product marketing going in the next few years?
Absolutely. I mean, the Indian market, I think, is just on a growth spurt, right? So there are about 9,000 and counting tech startups in India, and every one of them at some point will want to hire a product marketer, right? So the market is only exploding. We saw a lot of B2C companies already become unicorns. Now is really the time for B2B companies to really get on that hockey stick curve.
Makes sense. And I think because you mentioned about the different skill sets that are required from a product marketer, right? The different verticals that they actually work on. There's also a lot of overlap between other roles. Like I think there's one that keeps coming up is the overlap between product marketing and product management. And I mean, it's not from
Absolutely.
just a skill based or from an organizational point of view, but I also see that quite a lot of people in their career are confused between choosing these two. And I myself was confused about this a few years ago because product management and product marketing has its own advantages and disadvantages, right? So what is the difference between these two different roles?
Yep, great question. So, there's a lot of overlap, and it's also because there's a lot of collaboration that happens between product marketing and product management, right? Right from before launch of a product to go live to having customers to even sunset phase, you would have these two functions really working together. There's a lot of overlap and close collaboration that happens. And this is a question that a lot of organizations struggle with. So whenever I go to a trade show, I'm very relieved to say, oh, this is the same problem that everybody is dealing with. And Serious Decisions, which is now part of Forrester Research, has a very, very thorough framework on how the different responsibilities of these two functions. And I'll be happy to share the link with you later if you want to share it with your audience. But I like to, that's a very thorough framework, but I like to really keep it simple. And this is how I think about it, right? So product management listens. Okay, they listen to the market and they work with engineering to build the right product that is going to be relevant to the target audience, right? Whereas product marketing talks, right? Product marketing talks to the market and positions a product in the marketplace. So, very simple analogy to remember: listen, talk. Right? We talked about the Indian context earlier. I think the product management function is a lot more mature in the Indian context, right? So, about a decade and a half back, if you remember, that's when product management roles started getting outsourced to India. So it started off with the large MNCs, and slowly the community kind of grew. So it's a much larger, much more mature community, if you will. Whereas product marketing is more nascent. You don't see a lot of outsource roles here. It's mostly, there might be some APAC roles that are based out of India, and largely companies that are based out of India, product companies that are based out of India that are looking to hire. And so that community is definitely nascent and growing, but steadily on the upward curve. So definitely a good place to be.
Got it. I'm glad I made the transition. Uh, so, 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 so talking about transitions, right, from journalism to content marketing and then product marketing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
how was it like? What kind of difficulties did you face, and then how did you pull that off?
Yeah, sure. So change is always hard, right? I mean, it's always painful. So there's always this lack of clarity, lack of direction, all the usual things. Nothing unusual that I went through. But what I'd like to say is, if you really put your heart and soul into something, and if you really want it, it'll something good will come of it, right? So I used to think I would apply the 1 hour a day formula. So I would work 1 hour more than all of my colleagues at work, right? So, and that adds up over time because you got to learn new chops, but you got to be ready to invest that time, right? And there were many working weekends and late nights, and it was difficult at times. And I think, will this ever end? Will the amount of work that I have, will it ever end? But yeah, eventually it all comes together. And I was fortunate enough. I had a great product marketing leader who taught me everything I know, right? And a few years into the role, I'm one of those people who loves to learn, so I'm always looking to learn new things. So I felt that I wanted to have like a strong foundation in product marketing. So I went ahead and did like a certification course from Pragmatic Marketing, which is basically the gold standard in product marketing certifications. So it was like an in-person certification course that I did in San Francisco. That was great. And Pragmatic is like one of those gifts that keep on giving. So every time you're stuck in a unusual scenario, you just go back to the fundamentals and the kind of thinking that they instill in you, and you revisit the problem, and suddenly you're able to come up with a solution.
That's really nice. So you said that you got into this role with a lot of hard work and a lot of learning on the weekends, and you also mentioned that you got
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to get into this role from within your
Yep.
organization. Now, if
That's right.
somebody,
Yeah.
so how, what would you recommend for somebody who's looking to transition into product marketing? Because not everybody has the luxury that their organization will open up an internal transfer. Sometimes they might have to
Mm-hmm.
look at other organizations and make that jump. So how should they go about doing this?
Sure. I mean, so first of all, if you're looking to get into product marketing, one of the first things I'd say, you got to ask yourself a few questions, right? You got to ask yourself, are you a people person? Do you like dealing with people? Because this role is all about that, right? You're going to be dealing with different teams across the organization, and you need to get work done by people who don't necessarily report to you, right? So that's one. Question two is, are you great at communication, right? Can you hold an audience? Can you present well? Can you tell stories? So both the spoken word as well as the written word. Can you write clean copy? These are all, must-haves, if you will. The other thing I would say is, interest in tech. Do you like tech? Do you have an aptitude for it? Do you like to get into the weeds, right? And of course, making sense of data. All that is really good to have. And if you answer yes to many of these questions, then I'd say probably product marketing is a good career for you. And start with baby steps. Start with, try writing a blog post on a product oriented blog post or a white paper, if you will, or maybe speak at a webinar that is product marketing related, right? But before you do that, I feel like you need to do a lot of groundwork. um, Basically you need to, take do a lot of learning, which is basically listen in on sales calls. If your salespeople are doing discovery calls, just listen in on them, listen to the customers, talk about their pain points, try to understand what are the buying triggers, and then start watching the industry, right? Following all the leading blogs, maybe script a video, speak at a webinar, start doing demos, right? Don't shy away from the product. Teach yourself to do product demonstrations. Perhaps you start off by doing it for your colleagues, and later, once you're kind of comfortable, do it at events and for partners, for analysts, and that and the I mean, slowly you will kind of learn the different facets of product marketing. Don't think that you can, just jump in and pick up all the five facets of it, but start slow and then try to up your game a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice because, as you said earlier, right, there are quite like five different skills that's needed. I think the most important thing is
Mm-hmm.
stakeholder management, right? Because you're sort of
Mm-hmm.
the oil that lubricates the whole engine, and you don't really
Mm-hmm.
have authority over any of these different moving parts. So
Right,
uh,
right,
getting
absolutely.
other folks to do work that you want without having authority,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a pretty challenging thing to do. And
Yep.
I
Yep.
realized that after I only joined product marketing, because from the outset it
Uh-huh.
looks simple, but it's quite complicated. And I think I also
Right.
liked that you said that you could be shadowing on demo calls, you could be doing research on the industry and reading the stuff that analysts put out. But I think if
Mm.
the thing that I like to add to the points that you already made is that if somebody is
Mm-hmm.
looking to transition from sales into product marketing, they should probably
Mm-hmm.
focus on building their skills in sales enablement and
Mm.
preparing the
Yeah,
content sales
absolutely.
folks require, because there are quite a few
Absolutely.
organizations that need that skill. So
Yep.
right, you might not be the best at stakeholder management right off the bat, but the strength,
Mm-hmm.
play to your strengths and see how you can get your foot through the door, and then
Mm-hmm.
slowly build a well-rounded skill set and then make the transition. But now, when you started off in product marketing, right, uh, what are the lessons that you learned
Mm-hmm.
and that you wish you knew when you started off?
Lessons learned. Some of these are pretty generic. They
Okay.
apply to any field that you're in, but I think they're all the more relevant for product marketing. So one is definitely networking and building relationships. I couldn't say this more emphatically, right? Anytime you meet a sales guy, take him out for lunch, take him out for coffee, right? Sit them down, find out what their day is like, find out what their challenges are, right? How can you add value to their role, right? And this applies to across the organization, whether it's product management, whether it's customer support, customer success, because these are all functions, and of course the larger marketing team, right? Because these are all functions that, like you said earlier, they don't report to you, but you do need them to execute on your projects so that the larger organization is successful. So and many of these things work based on relationships, right? So I cannot emphasize the need to build relationships and your network across the organization, and even externally, like with partners, with analysts, you name it, right? So that's one. Number two is definitely create awareness around product marketing. right? So if you work in a product company, even folks within the organization will walk up to you and say, hey, you're in marketing, it's a product company, so how are you different from the rest of marketing, right? So there's a lot of, uh, anytime you get a stage, don't pass up the opportunity, right? So whether it's a team meeting, it's an all hands at your company, present, talk about the projects that you're working on, right? Share your victories, share your achievements, send out mailers, create buzz around product marketing, because everybody across the organization needs to understand the value that you bring to the table, right? So what else? The third thing I would say is really seek out people who you can turn to, right? Seek out
Yeah.
mentors. This could be within the organization. People will help who will help you kind of figure out how things work and how how processes kind of evolved over time. What is the history of the company? Where did it come from? What is the background of some of the people that you're dealing with? And these are all very interesting chips that you will only put together over time, right? And you can just hasten that process if you have mentors within the organization.
Got it.
Also seek out mentors externally. This could be product marketing experts, marketing leaders who you can turn to. Whenever you're stuck, you need some guidance, you need some advice, reach out to somebody who can give you a different perspective on things.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And relationship building is a pretty important skill that you need to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you don't have. I think a lot of people try to build relationships when they want something. They don't do it
Mm,
proactively. So it comes
yes.
across quite transactional. And
Mm-hmm.
because product marketing is something where you need the support of other people to execute your own projects and deliver your KPIs.
Absolutely.
Having that informal
Mm-hmm.
relationship is really important. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
talking about relationships with sales folks, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to talk about or hear your thoughts on sales enablement. Often it is sort of a euphemism uh, for deck making,
Uh-huh.
or at least I spend a lot of my time doing decks for the sales teams. It obviously involves equipping them with quite a lot of other content as well. But what's your take on sales
Mm.
enablement, especially from the product marketing side?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, sales enablement, I have a completely different perspective about it. I think there's a lot of value the product marketing provides to the sales enablement function. And think about it, right? From day one of a sales rep being hired, product marketing should be in front of them, right? In a sales boot camp, training them, bringing them up to speed about your company, your product portfolio, how do you position in the marketplace, who do you compete against, all of that good stuff.
Yeah,
And once they're ready, and that's on day one. But then look at your organization, look at your sales process, and see, are they doing discovery, right? I see a lot of companies especially in the Indian market, are not doing discovery, because discovery is essentially talking to your customers, not selling them, but listening to them, right? Discovering their pain points, finding out, are you talking to the right people? Does the person on the other side have the authority? Do they have the budget to make the purchase? And what is their need, right? Why are they talking to you? What is their pain point? And what is the kind of timeline they're looking at for this project? So these are all things you need to kind of emphasize, kind of create a process in your company. If it doesn't already exist, product marketing can go ahead and set up a discovery system, right? You can make sure that this happens, because it's much more effective when you sell after you've discovered what the pain point is, rather than getting on a cold call and just selling to them, irrespective of who is on the other end of the line, and whether they care about your product or not, or whether they even have a need or not, right? So that's at the discovery phase. Then, of course, is the sales collateral itself, right? Whether it's brochures, demo videos, feature sheets, sales decks, of course. And you don't just create this collateral and put it out there, because salespeople, typically don't listen. Just like customers, it's said that you need to make about 7 outreaches to a customer before they actually respond, right? The same thing applies. Product marketing's customer is sales. So you got to reach out to sales through mailers, through in-person conversations, through webinars, right? Make them familiar with the collateral that you've released. Show them how it is supposed to be used. Get a salesperson along with you to co-present the collateral that you've created, right? And then there's this whole angle about competitive intelligence, of course, looking at all the different competitors and uh, telling them how you should be positioning, how you should win against them. The other piece is really around discovering the sales objections, right? What are the typical objections that salespeople face repeatedly? And product marketing can take that initiative to answer all of these objections right up front on your website. All you need to do is like create an FAQ, right? Typically, your customers are going to worry about, oh, when am I going to get my ROI? Is this going to work? Is this money well spent? Is this going to integrate with the rest of the systems that I already use, right? Whether it's my CRM, my ERP, my HRMS. So you got to, and these questions come up in every sales cycle. So you really got to uh, upfront, just proactively put all that information out there, whether it's on your website, whether it's a downloadable white paper. Those are all ways that product marketing can help shorten and smoothen the sales cycle, right? You got to do everything that is possible to make that sales process smoother.
For the customer and the sales rep as well. It's just not for the customer alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because the customer is always looking for, why should I not buy this, right?
Yeah.
Uh, am I going to fail because I'm the one who signed the check, right? You got to give them 101 reasons why they should buy you.
Got it. Yeah.
So the last thing I want to say is, say you've done like a quarter of sales enablement initiatives. Make sure you survey your sales folks, right? Reach out to them, find out what's working, what's not, what more do they want, and readjust your initiatives, right? Keep readjusting your sales enablement initiatives till you really find that, till you find that balance of what's working, what's not.
Yeah. I
I
think.
hope that answers your question and kind of really
Yeah.
makes it much more than deck making.
Yes, yes, it is. I think enabling the sales reps to perform at their best is something that we do. And if it involves deck making, so be it. But then, in addition to this, you gave quite a few other things that we could work on as well. These are some of the challenges that I faced. I think one of the challenges is, especially when dealing with the sales team, is that they tend to give you quite a lot of requests, and some of these requests might not be that important. Like it could be making a personalized deck for a deal that they think is very important, but then which doesn't really that it doesn't the opportunity doesn't really exist sometimes. And sometimes they tend to also use product marketing as a content marketing agency, where they need a certain piece of content, and they said, "Hey, I'm not going to sit and do this. Let me just offload this task to the product marketing team." So, how would you recommend product marketers to deal with such scenarios?
I mean, so it really depends, right? It really depends on how big is the deal that is at hand. So if you're pitching to, say, Google, you better, your product marketing better do everything possible to make it happen, right? Whether it's a new deck, whether it's a new video, whether it's a new brochure, I mean, it has to be done, right? But then you also got to kind of prioritize and look at what are the other if you do this, if you drop everything else and do this, what is going to suffer, right? So
Yeah.
if you're already working on something really high priority, which has a deadline, like an analyst engagement, which cannot be put off, then obviously you got to prioritize and look at that. So I would say you have to kind of play it by the year, look at the opportunity at hand and what else is going to suffer. And I'll also say this, so it really, these kind of requests will really come down if you give sales people a ready-made playbook, if you will, right? When you're starting off your sales enablement initiatives, sit down with your sales leaders and come up, identify what are the gaps and what are their priorities, and really chart out what are the things that product marketing is going to provide, right? And there has to be buy-in from the sales leaders to really make this successful, right? Between marketing and sales. So once there is buy-in and you say that these are the things that are going to be provided to you, and this should all be shelfware, should be things that salespeople can pick up and use irrespective of the deal at hand, right? Of course, there will be some customization, right? And there should be, because every customer is different, and you got to tailor your deck accordingly. But what I'm saying is, like, give them a lot of material that is already available so that you can reduce these one-off knee-jerk requests.
Makes sense. And so going on from sales enablement, let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
positioning. Uh, I think positioning is often looked at as a dark art, right? It's quite complex. It's got a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of gut feeling involved. Is there a way to sort of break this down into an easy to understand framework that people can implement wherever they are?
Sure, absolutely. So, I completely disagree with you on it being a dark art. So, I think there's a lot of process to it. In fact, just the other day, I was talking to somebody who, he's done some positioning work and he wanted some feedback. So, before I looked at anything that he had created, I just asked him, how do you go about positioning? And he told me, he reads everything. He reads a lot of white papers, blogs, industry articles, watches videos, and consumes all of that content, and then kind of marinates it and comes up with positioning for his product, right? But there's a very big missing ingredient,
What is
and
that?
that is primary research.
Okay.
Primary research, right? And the
Okay.
value of that primary research cannot be understated, right? Because your positioning has to be rooted in customer research. You have to talk to your customers and figure out why they buy and why they buy you, right? You might think that these are the reasons why your customers buy you and why you're different. And if you talk to your customers and just listen to them, they'll give you a whole lot of different reasons, which will be completely different from yours. And they'll give you a whole new perspective on why you exist in the marketplace in the first place, right? And positioning really has to use the language and the pain points that the customer talks about. It has to be less about you and more about them, more about the customer, right? And once you really understand your customer problems, right? I mean, no matter how much time you spend understanding and interviewing customers, it's just golden, right? Because your understanding of customer problems can be utilized in everything you do, whether it's positioning, whether it's sales enablement, whether it's telling colorful stories at the beginning of a webinar, you name it, it'll be useful to you.
Yeah.
So tap into that. Then of course you need to look at who else is out there, how do they position themselves, what does the marketplace look like, how mature is it, what are the
Yeah.
analysts saying, what are the upcoming trends, what's going to happen, say 6 months down the line. You need to kind of juxtapose all of this together and make sense of it, and then come up with your positioning, right? And
Yeah.
I love this story that Simon Sinek says in his book Start With Why. Right? He talks about how Apple is credited for having revolutionized the way we consume music. Right? Earlier,
Yeah.
people used to collect albums. Now we just collect songs. Right?
Yes.
But they never invented the iPod or the MP3 technology behind it. In fact, the credit for that goes to a Singapore-based company called Creative Technology, right? And
Yeah.
when they went to market, they told the market, "Hey, 5 GB MP3 player, do you want it?" And everybody is like, "What? What the heck? What the heck is an MP3 player? Why
Yeah.
would you want that?" Right? But Apple goes to market and says, "1,000 songs in your pocket." And
Yeah.
immediately everybody wants that, right?
Yeah.
So you're already sold on the iPod, and then you're just kind of figuring out, okay, is it going to be a 5 GB or a 10 GB or what have you? So those quantitative details don't really matter. It's really finding out that customer need or desire, and
Got
wrapping yourself around that,
it.
right?
Got it.
Which
Okay.
really makes you successful in the marketplace.
Makes sense. So I think the key understanding here is primary research. But is there any resources that you would recommend that people can read that have sort of broken this down in an easy to understand way?
I mean, there are plenty of resources out there, right? So I think you just have to ask. April Dunford is like the person who epitomizes everything positioning. So read her book. Pragmatic Marketing has frameworks on how you kind of approach positioning, and all of this thinking comes from there, right? The understanding of customer problems, and then using that to create your positioning. So I'm sure PMA, Product Marketing Alliance, also has a similar framework on how to arrive at positioning. So there's plenty of resources out there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So going on from positioning, uh, you've spoken quite a lot about analyst and engagement, right? And I think in your previous experience, you sort of spearheaded that wing in your company. So can you talk a little more about analyst engagements? Why companies should do this, and how they should go about doing it.
Sure. Analyst engagements are only relevant when you're really playing in the enterprise space, right? So you could do, like a Gartner engagement and a Forrester engagement, but you really have to be sure that one, they are covering the space that you're talking about, right? And they're only going to be covering it if the market is big enough for them to look at, right? And then there are, of course, much more boutique analyst houses that look at various parts of the industry. So you really got to figure out which are the research firms that you're going to go after. It's very important to kind of identify them, and also look out for influencers, right? There might be some really great, well-regarded names in the industry, experts who your customers often turn to for vendor advice, right? And those are the people that you want to target. So it's really important to kind of target the people, the analysts and experts that you're going to go after, and then kind of arrive at, okay, what are the outcomes you want out of it, and what is the outreach you're going to do, right?
Okay.
And like I said earlier, so it really only matters if you only want to go after the Gartners and the Forresters of the world if you're going to play in the enterprise space. And I have done a significant amount of work in that. So I've handled Gartner Magic Quadrants, Forrester Waves, Sirius Decisions, Sirius Views when they were separate from Forrester, and a lot of that. So that's a lot of effort that you kind of put in, almost at an organization level, right? It's not, you don't just do one magic quadrant evaluation and leave it at that. It's an ongoing relationship. We come back to relationships again, right? So the relationship that you have to kind of build with the analysts as well as the firm at large, to kind of be top of mind with them. Every time you have a new release, we would schedule a briefing with them, make sure they've seen our product, the latest and greatest innovation, have them come and do on sites with us, have them come as speakers for company events, and what have you. So there's a lot of outreach that happens throughout the year to kind of be top of mind with analysts.
Got it. And there's one thing that I believe is common among this analyst relationship, right? It's pay to play. It seems like a lot of organizations who want to get the analyst time will have to pay pretty high fees for it, even if their product capabilities are quite good. Like, what's your take on that? Like, can a startup with exceptional product, but let's say they don't have the budget for analyst relationships, right? Will they be able to make their mark on analysts? Is there any recommendation that you would have on that?
I would say maybe start with something smaller, like do start with review sites. A lot of the customer review sites anyway have grids, right? Like your G2 Crowd, G2 now, of course, and Capterra, Peer Insights, plenty of them, right?
Yeah.
You start with those, start getting a lot of customer reviews in. Once your star rating kind of is really solid, you will feature well on the grid. Those are also really good to get that third party validation that our customers need. And I'd also say never underestimate the value of case studies, right? Do video case studies, do written case studies, testimonials, do guest blogs by your customers. And that all of this is all about building that third party validation, right? Whether it's by a customer, because if a customer says something about you, it's 10 times more valuable than you saying it about yourself, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So it's all about that. And so then you really got to kind of prioritize and look at which are the initiatives that you're going to run, and see what is the kind of stickiness that you get, and kind of reevaluate based on that.
Got it. So I think we've come to the end of this webinar. Poornima, thanks a lot for your insights today. So if folks out there want to reach out to you, how would you how should they do it?
You can always reach out to me by just filling in a form on my website, which is productmarketingfortech.com. Or if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm more than available there as well.
Sure. Thank you, Poornima. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Wonderful talking to you,
Yeah.
Shiva. Thank you for doing this. I think this is a great way to kind of grow and mature the community.
Yeah.
And lovely speaking to you. I hope this was valuable for your audience.
Yes, and I think it is indeed valuable. I learned quite a lot of things as well. And I think, given your experience in a few of these verticals, I think I'll probably do another webinar with you where we deep dive. It could be on analyst engagement, or it could be on sales enablement. But we should do that sometime later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sounds good, Shiva.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good rest of the day now.
You too.
Yeah. You too now. Bye bye.